Hello there, and today we're gonna talk about learning outcome B4, which basically says, using one example, describe one function of one hormone on human behavior. So, hormones. I think it's a term a lot of us are very familiar with, and it seems to be especially present when it comes to talking about topics such as puberty, for example, or anything similar to that. And there's actually quite a good reason for this. Hormones are very, very important in our development. They perform a variety of functions, from something like growth to something like reproduction. But we're not really going to focus on that. We're going to specifically talk about how they influence behavior, because, well, hormones are capable of doing that too. One thing to note here, actually a quite important thing to note here, is that hormones, they don't influence behavior directly. What I mean by that is that rather than causing something directly, as I previously mentioned, what they rather do is that they increase or decrease a likelihood of a certain behavior happening as a response to certain environmental stimuli. Let's try to bring an example. Let's say you wake up in the morning and you actually feel somewhat energized and all. Obviously, that probably wouldn't happen during the school week for obvious reasons. No one really gets to be energized. So let's say it happens maybe like Saturday. Decent example. And it's not gonna cause you to necessarily do productive things. It's not gonna do that. But it may increase the likelihood of you actually doing something productive. It basically increases the chances. It can be the other way around. Let's say you wake up and you feel ill. It's not gonna cause you to do nothing, but it will certainly increase the chances of you being not that productive. Maybe you will end up doing nothing at all due to the circumstances that you're in. So now let's talk about a specific hormone. Let's bring up oxytocin. And oxytocin is also sometimes referred to as the cuddle chemical. And once again, there's a good reason for that. Oxytocin is responsible for basically promoting social bonds and sexual reproduction. It's produced when we perform any sexual related actions, when we perform things such as hugging, kissing, cuddling, all of that sort of stuff. Let's be more specific here. Let's say there's a couple, right? And they perform such actions on a daily basis. They do it very often. Well, what would happen? With such frequency of these actions, there will be a lot of oxytocin produced. And with such quick production of the hormone, with it being so often, the bond will grow stronger. And what's interesting about this is that the more action is performed, the more hormone there is. But it goes the other way around. The more hormone is produced, the more likely of the action there is to happen. So it kind of goes back and forth, so to speak. Now then, I think we should move on to the study. One good example of oxytocin in action is Romero et al., which was conducted in 2014. So let's move on.
The aim of the study was to see if oxytocin promotes social bonds in mammals in a non-reproductive context. The methodology involved 16 dogs, which were sprayed intranasally, either with a placebo or oxytocin. After that, each dog was placed with their owner and another dog in the same room. In this case, the owner's dog is represented by my cat. Meanwhile, the other dog, to which we will refer to as the dog partner, is represented by the stuffed toy. The owner's dog, quote-unquote, received the oxytocin treatment, theoretically promoting social bonding. Meanwhile, the dog partner received the placebo. The behaviors were recorded by a camera in a span of 1 hour. The room itself was entirely empty with an exception of a single chair on which the owner sat, which he also had to move to different, specifically pre-designated positions every 10 minutes. In our case, this was somewhat simplified, and the chair was moved every 2 minutes, and it only happened around 3 times. But overall, the owner was required to sit silently and avoid interacting with the dogs. After the procedures were finished, the recordings of the session were analyzed. The method for that was basically going through a checklist that consisted of the dog behaviors that showed affiliation. These behaviors was consisting of things such as licking, body contact, gentle touching, and sniffing. Based on these behaviors, it was found out that dogs sprayed with oxytocin did indeed show higher affiliation towards the owner, as these behaviors were more present. More than that, the dogs spent more time in close proximity to the owner. The very similar results were observed for the dog partner when it was the one receiving the oxytocin condition instead, showing that oxytocin was the root cause of the increase in affiliation and not the previous ownership. Along with these findings, there was another extremely curious discovery made, as it was found that higher amounts of affiliation behaviors led to more oxytocin being released. Basically speaking, oxytocin promotes social behaviors, and in return to that, social behaviors further promote the amount of oxytocin produced.
According to the experiment, it seems to confirm that oxytocin plays a major role in social bonding. It didn't really matter whether the dog was owned or not, as all of the dogs actually sprayed with the oxytocin and not the placebo showed a more friendly and social behavior, unlike the other dogs. Basically concluding that oxytocin, those little chemicals, are very important in forming bonds. Thank you for watching.